Finding your spiritual rhythms. Pursuing. Why pursuing matters. Many people today are not rejecting God outright. They're exhausted, confused, or quietly disengaged. Some feel burnt out from doing things for God without ever slowing down to know Him. Others feel bored because their faith has stalled at secondhand beliefs. Still others feel broken, unsure if God is actually safe, present, or interested in them. Within the larger journey of finding your spiritual rhythms, the rhythm of pursuing invites us to something deeper and steadier, intentionally taking time to learn who God is, not who we assume He is, not who others have misrepresented Him to be, but who He reveals Himself to be through Scripture, through wise teachers and mentors, and through a life shaped by curiosity instead of obligation. Pursuing is not about striving to earn God's attention. It's about responding to the truth that God has already made Himself known and is inviting us to know Him more fully. For those feeling broken, burnt out, or bored with church, pursuing becomes a healing rhythm, one that restores trust, renews wonder, and grounds faith in something real and resilient. What we mean by pursuing. When we talk about pursuing God, we are not talking about frantic spiritual effort or checking religious boxes. Pursuing is a relational posture. It is the steady, humble decision to keep learning, keep listening, and keep growing in understanding. Throughout Scripture, knowing God is described not as mere information, but as relationship. The story of the Bible consistently shows a God who reveals Himself, His character, His ways, His heart, so that people can walk with Him in trust. Pursuing, then, is aligning our rhythms with that revelation. This rhythm asks, what is shaping my view of God right now? Am I learning from trustworthy sources? Am I allowing my understanding of God to mature, or has it stayed frozen in the past? For many, the faith they are deconstructing is not faith in God at all. It's faith in incomplete teaching, cultural Christianity, or unexamined assumptions. Pursuing helps us rebuild on a healthier foundation. Scripture is a place of encounter, not just answers. One of the primary ways we pursue God is through Scripture. But how we approach the Bible matters just as much as whether we read it. Many people were taught to read the Bible primarily as a rule book, a theological weapon, a source of quick answers. While Scripture does guide, correct, and teach, its deeper purpose is revelation. The Bible tells one unified story of God's desire to dwell with humanity and restore what has been broken. When we read Scripture with that lens, it becomes less about winning arguments and more about encountering God's character. Healthy pursuing invites us to read slowly, not just frequently. Ask, what does this reveal about God? Before, what does this require of me? See individual passages within the larger biblical story. This approach aligns closely with the idea of actively listening, one of the unquittable actions. We are not rushing Scripture to get what we want. We are listening attentively to what God is revealing about Himself. For those who feel intimidated or overwhelmed by the Bible, tools and teaching that focus on the Bible's overarching narrative, like visual explanations, themes, and historical context, can be incredibly freeing. They remind us that Scripture was meant to be understood in community, not mastered in isolation. Learning from teachers and mentors. God rarely forms people in isolation. Throughout history, faith has been passed on through relationships, parents, elders, prophets, disciples, pastors, and friends, who walk a little further down the road and invite others to follow. Pursuing includes learning from faithful teachers who handle Scripture with humility, mentors who model a lived, practiced faith, communities that allow questions without shame. This is especially important for those who have been hurt by church leadership in the past. Healthy mentors do not position themselves as replacements for God or unquestionable authorities. Instead, they point beyond themselves, encouraging discernment, curiosity, and growth. This rhythm connects deeply with encouraging speaking. When people are invited to ask honest questions and voice doubts, Learning becomes healing. Silence and suppression breed brokenness. Open dialogue builds trust. A good mentor doesn't give you all the answers. They help you ask better questions and stay engaged in the pursuit, even when faith feels complex or costly. Pursuing without burning out. One of the dangers of spiritual growth is turning it into another performance metric. Read more, learn more, do more. But, when practiced well, pursuing actually guards against burnout rather than causing it. This is where monitoring workload and giving rest becomes essential. Pursuing is not about cramming more spiritual activity into an already overloaded life. It's about choosing sustainable rhythms that fit your season. Healthy pursuing might look like setting aside small, consistent times for learning instead of unrealistic goals, letting go of guilt when rhythms need to shift, trusting that God values presence over productivity. Jesus regularly withdrew to quiet places, not because he lacked commitment, but because he understood limits. Learning who God is includes learning how he designed us to live, with rest, margin, and grace. When pursuing becomes frantic, it stops being relational. When it is rooted in rest, it becomes transformative. From information to transformation. Knowing about God is not the same as knowing God, but knowing God always involves learning. The goal of pursuing is not accumulating facts. It's forming a clearer, truer picture of who God is and allowing that picture to reshape how we live. As our understanding deepens, fear-based faith gives way to trust. Obligation-based faith gives way to love. Boredom gives way to curiosity and passion. This is where discovering passion often emerges. As people learn more about God's heart for justice, mercy, restoration, and presence, they often rediscover their own calling. Faith becomes less about attending services and more about participating in God's ongoing work in the world. Pursuing fuels engagement because it reminds us why faith matters in the first place. Practicing the rhythm of pursuing. Like any rhythm, pursuing grows through practice. Here are a few accessible ways to begin or renew this rhythm. Choose depth over speed. Read less scripture, more thoughtfully. Sit with a passage. Reflect on what it reveals about God's character. Learn in community. Join a group, class, or conversation where learning is shared and questions are welcomed. Seek wise voices. Identify teachers or mentors who demonstrate humility, compassion, and faithfulness, not just confidence. Integrate rest. Let learning be life-giving, not draining. Step back when needed without shame. Stay curious. Allow your understanding of God to grow and mature. Faith that never changes often stops growing. These practices create space for allowing engagement, where people move from passive belief to active participation in their faith journey. A rhythm for the long road. Pursuing is not a phase, it's a lifelong rhythm. There will be seasons of intense learning and seasons of quiet trust, seasons of clarity and seasons of mystery. Through it all, God remains faithful, patient, and present. For those who feel broken, pursuing offers healing by replacing distorted images of God with truth. For those who feel burned out, it offers rest by shifting faith from performance to relationship. For those who feel bored, it offers renewed wonder by revealing the depth and beauty of who God is. In a world full of noise and certainty, pursuing invites us into a quieter, braver posture to keep learning, keep listening, and keep walking with a God who is always more loving, more gracious, and more present than we imagined.